Hello, hello. Welcome to the HVAC Insider Series brought to you by Breezy. I'm your host, as always, CJ Todd. Here at Breezy, we're dedicated to helping residential HVAC business owners thrive in today's competitive market. That's why we bring in a new HVAC expert every month, soon to be bi-weekly in February, to share proven strategies and insights designed to give your business the edge that it needs. Whether you're looking to boost sales, enhance marketing, master pricing strategies, or just build a stronger brand, the HVAC Insider Series has you covered. Breezy is hard at work building a service titan alternative built solely for the HVAC, plumbing, and electrical industry. Our mission is to eliminate the off-season for owners, and we do that by working alongside some of the industry's best. Hardcore operators like today's guest, Weldon Long, Gary Ellicks, Brandon Brown, just to name a few, to build a CRM with features that actually help you succeed and help trade business owners thrive. If you want to learn more about Breezy and how we can help you engage your customers, streamline operations, and eliminate the shoulder season once and for all, just go ahead and scan that QR code, and we'll get in contact with you. But enough about us. Let's meet Weldon Long, today's guest. I've worked with Weldon for about 5 years, and he's a certified residential HVAC badass. He's a New York Times bestselling author 3 times over. He has over 20 years of experience growing, selling residential HVAC businesses, and he scaled his most recent HVAC business, Peak Home Performance in Colorado Springs, from 0 to 42 million in just 60 months. That's unheard of. And he sold that to private equity for over an 8 multiple. He has 2 upcoming in-person events. You can see the QR codes for them right here. If you're interested in understanding how to grow, scale, and sell your residential HVAC business, just like the topic we're going to learn today, you can scan that red QR code to apply for that event. And the other is hyper-focused on advanced selling techniques to help your salespeople thrive. So go ahead and scan that blue QR code, and you can go to the landing page to learn more and register for that. So before we get started, I want to play for you a quick video.
Our next guest has an incredible story. Weldon Long is an entrepreneur, a sales expert, and a New York Times best-selling author.
A New York Times best-selling author, entrepreneur, and professional speaker. Joining me now, Mr. Weldon Long. How are you, Weldon?
How you doing, Mr. Lopez? Good to meet you, man.
Taking steps to make fear actually work for you.
Wally Long hit rock bottom, then he had a moment of clarity, and he chronicles his journey in his new book, The Upside of Fear.
You hear his story, you're gonna go, well, gee, my deal ain't so bad. Y'all welcome Weldon Long. Woo! Are you ready? Are you ready to rock your life? You gotta dream big. Whenever you think you've got as big as you can get, go bigger. And when somebody tells you you can't do it, don't let them get in your way while you're busy doing it. Everything that you need to do to build a life of success and wealth and prosperity, it's easy. It's just a little bit easier not to. The topic that I really want to talk about today is the topic of building your company to grow, scale, or sell, right? So one of the things I've learned in this business over 20 some odd years now is that if you build your business to sell it and you decide not to sell it, that's a really good thing, because now you got a business that's cranking out cash. It's a nice little ATM for you. I think CJ mentioned this most recent project I did. I built this company from 0 to 42 million in almost 5 years on the nose, from July of 2019 to June of 2024, and just sold it a few months ago, as CJ mentioned. Currently, we have about 6 other companies that me and we have in our partnership that we're building to do the same thing with. And a lot of people don't like to sell them. A lot of people like to build them and keep them, and that's okay too. My thing is I'm a startup guy. I like to organize companies, drive the sales, drive the revenue, drive the margins, and most of all, drive the EBITDA, the profit. And then I'm just not a long-term operator. So I find a good operator and put a management team in there, and then look for somebody to take it over and run it from there. But again, I had a client a number of years ago, maybe 6 years ago, right before COVID, and she was had a nice company, great company, doing about $30 million in revenue, great brand, great company, $30 million and no profit, right? So that can happen. I see it happen quite a bit, actually, even with big companies like that. And at the time, she was primarily, her income was her earned volume rebates, which were pretty significant. So it wasn't like she was, dying on the vine or anything. She was probably getting $600,000 or $700,000 or $800,000 a year in earned volume rebates. But that was her compensation, basically. And but I had just helped a friend of hers sell their company for $95 million, got them ready over about a 2-year period, got them in the private equity lane, and got that done. So she's like, hey, that looks pretty good, $95 million. Can you help me get there? I'm like, well, we can get you close. And so we went to work for about 2 years. Now, keep in mind, back in those days, all I did was work for big companies that wanted to sell. My standard daily rate was $10,000 a day plus travel. You had to buy at least 6 days a month. So these are companies that were paying, $700,000-$800,000 a year to have me come in and do this, but they were selling for millions of dollars. And so we built her company, grew it to about 40 million, got her profitable. And she said, well, hell, I don't want to sell now. I'm like, well, that's okay too. You could just hang on to it. And she did. Worked out great for her because she waited another 6 or 8 months and ended up getting another $20 million for her company. Ended up selling for a 15 multiple, which was crazy. I think CJ mentioned I got an 8 multiple on my most recent company, but that's because it was only a 5-year company. So what I want to talk about today, and what Breezy invited me in to talk about today, is what do you got to do to grow, scale, or sell your company? I'm at a stage in my career now. I don't like to travel as much. And over the course of the last 20 years, I've done a lot of speaking and consulting in different industries. I've got clients as big as FedEx and Farmers Insurance. But the last couple of years, I've really turned my attention to just give back to the residential HVAC and plumbing community, because honestly, that's the industry that gave me everything I have. And so now that I've slowed down, we've built some programs for contracting companies who want to build and grow. And if they want to sell, then I hook them up with one of our private equity partners. No big deal, but you can keep it as well, like I say. But that's my main focus. That's all I'm doing at this point, and running my own companies. Like I said, I've got fixing to have 6 companies that we own a part of that we're running. And I do this, and that's pretty much the scope of my work these days. I do a lot of work for EGIA, which is an 85-year-old nonprofit out of California. Does a lot of amazing work in the industry. I do a lot of stuff for them as well. So as CJ mentioned, oh, by the way, CJ did mention this, right? We're doing an owners-only event in March here at the Broadmoor Hotel. It's a 5-star hotel about 4 blocks from my house. Told you I don't like to travel. I will go 4 blocks, but that's about it. But we're having this in. I think it's just about sold out. We only allow 30 people, as I recall. We just don't want it to get too big. And then we're doing a night over at my garage with all my cars. I've got a really cool collection. And we're going to do cigar and whiskey tasting. It's going to be really, really cool. At the end of this today, don't run off, because we're going to draw from the people that are in here. And Krista, who is my chief operating officer, she's in the background there somewhere. She's going to draw a name, and they're going to get a ticket that's, I think, $3,300, something like that, $3,500 with the VIP experience. So yeah, $3,500. Hang around. We got a lot of people on here, but not that much. You got a better chance to win the lottery. I can promise you that. So stick around. We're gonna do a drawing and make that happen.
Hey, Weldon, let me jump in real quick.
Yep.
So whoever the names are going to be drawn from the people that scan that QR code and apply. So it's a pretty quick application. It'll take you maybe 3-4 minutes while you're listening to Wally and his story. Go ahead and fill out that form, and then we'll pick a winner from that pool at the end.
Awesome. Thanks, CJ. So I've written 3 books, and we're going to talk primarily about, we're going to talk a little bit about the one in the middle and the one on the right. The Power of Consistency is a book I wrote, came out about 12 years ago. It's a New York Times, Wall Street Journal bestseller. It's all about the mindset to be successful. We'll talk about that. And then consistency selling is the method that I use to grow these companies. And that's the Amazon #1 bestseller. Had a lot of success with that book. That first one over there, that blue one, was my first book, kind of the story of my crazy life, which we'll talk about. And I want to talk about my HVAC journey. As I mentioned earlier, everything I have in my life, I owe to this industry. This is the industry that picked me up and dusted me off and gave me a fighting chance to build a successful life. And I got my first job in this industry in 2003. It was in June of 2003. Got the job the last week of June, and with very little training, and thrown out in the field the first week of July, a week later, and didn't know really what I was doing. I did have know a thing or two about selling, and I went out my very first month. And if you look down there at July 31st, you'll see that I sold almost $150,000 in my very first month. And by the way, that's when the average ticket for a full system was about $7,500. You can look at some of the prices there. It's a joke compared to today's prices. In today's dollars, that would easily be 350 grand. But it really, really changed my life. Now, I got this job and I did that for a year. And then I decided, you know what? This business doesn't seem that complicated. And I set out to open my own company, which I did. A little company called Best Value Heating and Cooling. Opened this company in 2004. A little bit later, I bought a company called Right Total Indoor Comfort. They were a 70-year-old company here in town, and grew that from $0 to $20 million in 5 years. This was a nice little letter we got from Inc. magazine in 2009, just outlining that we were one of America's fastest growing small companies. I had already started by the time I sold that company in 2010. I sold this company a year later in 2010. But by 2007, 2008, I was already traveling, training other dealers. People started calling me, and the manufacturers called me. And next thing I know, I was training a bunch of dealers all over the country. 2010, a real estate investor bought the company because he wanted to put it in one of his buildings. Fine by me. I was traveling at that point 200,000 miles a year. So I was happy to have one less thing to juggle. By the way, I do it still now. Now I have 7 companies. Well, 6. We just sold one. But now we have 6 companies, and I can do it while I'm doing other stuff because I learned how to build a management team, which is part of what we're going to talk about today, right? When you do it right, you don't have to be there 24/7. The company we just sold, I bet you there's not a single week in 5 years that I spent more than 4 hours in that company, right? You build a team, you build the systems, you build the processes, and you check in when you need to check in. You manage by the numbers, right? So I did that for a lot of years. As I told you, eventually I started just working with a lot of the bigger companies, and was getting ridiculous fees, but I was making these guys millions of dollars. So what's wrong with paying me a couple of bucks to do it? But in 2017, 2018 is when a lot of my big clients started selling their private equity. And I'm like, holy cow, I better get back in the contracting side. So in 2019, which turned out to be very fortuitous, by the way, with COVID hitting the next year, because my speaking consulting business stopped, right? Nobody was traveling. But I opened this company here, Peak Home Performance. And as I mentioned, from July of 2019 to June of 2024, $42.5 million, and sold that one. Just closed a couple of months ago. And it was really, really a fun journey. I love doing this. Build them, sell them. Again, build them and keep them. That's fine too. But here's the thing. When I got this first job right here, I was really grateful for that job. I mentioned to you, I have a lot of gratitude for the industry. And a big reason for that is when I got this job, I was living here. This is a halfway house at 3808 North Nevada here in Colorado Springs. And it was a place for guys like me that were pretty much losers. I was a 9th grade high school dropout, no education, and I'd run the streets for a lot of years. I was 39 years old when I got here. And as bad as this place was, actually was a step up for me, because the reason I was here is because I just spent 13 years here. Between 1987 and 2003, that roughly 16-year span, I spent 13 of those years walking prison yards. Went to prison the first time in 1987 for pulling a gun on a guy, did about 4.5 years, got out. When I got out the first time, I was still a punk, still a thug, still a 9th grade high school dropout. Now I was a convicted felon to boot, so I didn't see much opportunity for myself. Started running with a bunch of guys I had met in the penitentiary, brilliant scholar that I am. And within 2 years, I was back in prison. Got out again 2 years later, and at 30 years old. And at 32 years old in 1996, I went back to prison the third time, this time to federal prison for 7 years. So my life was pretty much off in the ditch. Looks a lot different today, doesn't it? Looks an awful lot different today. And, I love this picture. This picture is, I told you I'm into this car thing now. And my wife and I were down. This is the very first prison I was into. It's the same picture as that one I showed you a moment ago. This is the other end of the prison. And we stopped and took that picture. If you could throw a rock over that guard tower right there, you would hit the cell house I was living in 1987 and 1988 as a 23-year-old punk. And I love this because the juxtaposition of what it was, that's almost 40 years ago. It's hard to believe. In my life today, my wife jumped out, took the picture, had her get in real quick. I didn't know if I was breaking the law or not. They don't like pictures taken of their prisons. We scooted off, but I love this picture. In fact, Krista, I had my 61st birthday this past weekend, and Krista took this picture, bless her heart, she's such a sweetheart, and made a giant, massive poster size in this frame. And so it's going up in the shop over one of the cars for sure. So again, my life looks a lot different today. 13 years of this. This is my life today. This is a little bit older picture. That little girl right there is 21 years old now, and that little knucklehead in the long hair is 32 years old now, and I'm 61. So yeah, my wife doesn't age. My wife is still 35, I think. She sure looks like it. So let's talk about laying the groundwork for success. That's what this is all about. And again, I really appreciate Breezy stepping up because, as they say, I'm easy, but I ain't cheap. And they want this message out there to help contractors, and they're willing to sponsor events like this. So I really, really appreciate that. First step you got to do, and the most often overlooked, you have to build a winning sales culture. You know, if you were to go, and I've done this many, many times, you can try it in your company, go to your company, do a company-wide meeting, and during the company-wide meeting, ask your team to play a quick game of word association. And you're going to give them a word, and you want them to think about or write down the first one or two words that come to their mind. And then you get them ready and you say, and the word is salesman, salesman. And you will find that 6 or 7 of your people out of 10, 60 or 70% will write down a negative word. Now just stop and think about that for a second. This is a sales-driven industry, right? Nothing happens till something gets sold. Nothing gets sold till somebody sets a lead. We depend, in fact, in my companies, I always tell people we're not a heating and air conditioning company. We're a sales and marketing company, right? We just happen to install heaters and air conditioners. Now, I'm not saying the install and all that stuff isn't important. It is very important. But for the most part in our industry, sales is really looked down on, you know? And we have to build a culture because we're a sales-driven organization, sales-driven industry. We got to have the right perspective on sales. When people think that sales is pushy and sleazy and high pressure, then you're not going to be performing at a high level. You have to change that culture to understand that sales is an honorable profession, that we improve the quality of life for our homeowners. We solve problems for them, right? You got to have a winning sales culture. It's critical. And we use this middle book of mine, The Power of Consistency, is a book on the mindset. And that's the first thing I do in a company that I own. My client companies, the first thing we come in, we get the whole company and get everybody together. We spend some time with them, and we teach them about a healthy sales culture. You know, a funny thing about sales in our industry, no matter how busy you were, no matter how busy you got, let's say you had 100 service calls, you were backed up, there's never a time you would come in and go to your accounting department and say, hey, I need you to run some service calls for me. You would never do that. It wouldn't make any sense. But when it comes to sales, we'll find somebody with a heartbeat and a pulse, right? And that's our sales guy, right? No training. We don't know if he's a good fit for it, but he's our sales guy. Nobody else wants to do it. Nobody wants to do the sales side. We have to elevate the sales function in our companies. It's about building a solid culture, a solid foundation on the positive aspects of the sales mindset. It's critically important. Along with that, by the way, I teach what I call the prosperity mindset. That's what that book is about. It's a mindset of personal responsibility, a mindset of not making excuses, a mindset of not blaming other things for our problems in life. You know, a lot of times in sales, for example, salespeople, service techs, they blame the weather. They blame that the competitors are too cheap. They blame you because your prices are too high. They blame the economy. They blame this. They blame that. Everybody's at fault except themselves. But, you know, here's the problem with that. If everybody else is responsible, all those external things, if those all responsible for my sales productivity, then that means those things all have to change before I can get better. And that's not going to happen. It just isn't going to happen. We have to understand that if it is to be, it's up to me, right? I live by a simple acronym, CPA. I cause, permit, or allow everything in my life that happens to happen. And I take responsibility for the things in my life. I can therefore change them. I can impact them. Creating that part of your culture, the culture of personal responsibility, the culture of not blaming, whining, complaining, bitching, and moaning and all that, right? That's the culture you have to build. You cannot, my dear friend Gary Alex always says that culture will trump the strategy every single time. You can have the best strategy in the world, and if you got a shitty culture, you're not going to have success. It's just that simple. So this is so overlooked in business. You have to take care of the culture. You have to take care of the people, and they need to understand that they are responsible for their well-being. They are responsible for their results, right? You can't blame other things of the people. And we have to understand that sales is an honorable profession, right? So that's the first step. You can build a fantastic company if you get that strong foundation built. It's the very first thing that I do in one of my companies. When we work with clients, the very first thing we do is take the entire company through a program called The Power of Consistency. We take them through the entire program and teach them those things. Sales is honorable. We are responsible, right? If it is to be, it's up to me, right? Those service technicians get in that truck, they got to remember every day that they are the president of You Incorporated. They get to decide how much money they're going to make, what kind of productivity they're going to have. So that's the first thing you got to do, right? So here's the metaphor I use. Imagine right here I have a box. And in that box is everything I need to build a beautiful motorcycle. All the parts, all the components. And piece by piece, component by component, I begin to remove the motorcycle parts. At some point, I look in the box and it's empty. I have successfully removed all the components and I put them together properly. When I step back to admire this beautiful mechanical creation, what are the odds that I realize that instead of building a motorcycle out of the motorcycle parts, I accidentally baked a cake? Well, you can't bake a cake out of motorcycle parts. If it's a motorcycle in the box, it's a motorcycle outside the box. Well, folks, that box is a metaphor for our minds. And whatever is in there is the only thing that we can pull out. Whatever is in there is the only thing we can build and create, right? If it's a life of a mindset of a box full of, love and wealth and prosperity and happiness and sales prosperity, what are we going to pull out? That's what we're going to pull out. But if it's a life of scarcity, salespeople are crooks, jealousy, resentment, anger, blaming everybody else, guess what you're going to pull out? You can only pull out of the box that which is in your box. So the question becomes, what's in your box? Moreover, what's in the box of your team, right? What are their core beliefs? What do they believe it's going to, their expectations drive everything. In this program, I take you through a neurological process where we talk about how your thoughts chemically drive the emotions in your brain, your body, and then that drives the behaviors, that drives the results. So whatever's in there is eventually coming out. Over the course of your life, neuroscientists estimate you're going to make 30,000 choices a day. Now, these are very subtle, second nature, subconscious decisions, right? 30,000 a day. Every time you make a decision, every time you make a choice, you're reaching in that box and you're pulling out a piece of your life, right? If you make I get my paycheck, I got to decide, am I going to spend it all, go to Vegas, or am I going to save 20%? Well, let me reach in the box and find out. If I reach in and I pull out, save 20%, I pull out a piece of my financial future, right? If I reach in that box and I pull out, go to Vegas, woo, I pull out a different financial future. You see, our life is simply an accumulation of 30,000 choices we make every single day. And you're going to go through your life making your 30,000 decisions a day. And you know what's going to happen? One day, it's going to be the end of the line. The box is empty. It's the end of your life. You've made all the decisions and choices you're going to make. And hopefully you have your friends and family around you. And what you're going to realize is that when you look back on your life, it's going to be a perfect reflection of whatever is in that box. Whatever's in here is all you can pull out. So you got to know what's in there. In our, by the way, if you want to pick up the book, you can go on YouTube and see a ton of videos I've done on this. It's a very simple process to change that process in your brain, right? To recreate kind of a new roadmap, right? You got to put the good things in there, because the reality is a lot of what's in your box, other people put in there. You come into this world, your box is empty. You're just a little kid, little boy, little girl. Well, what happens? The world around you starts filling your head with ideas. Some things they tell you, some things you observe, but you start creating a belief system, right? And as you grow up, some of that stuff might be accurate. Some of it might not be accurate. The problem is, next thing you know, you're 18 to 20 years old. You start making your own decisions 30,000 times a day. And guess what you start pulling out? What everybody else put in there. Well, what if you want something different than what those other people put in there? What if your parents put certain things in your box about money? My dad used to say rich people were crooks. My grandfather used to say, look how good the po folk is eating tonight. I got all these negative ideas about money and wealth. We had this scarcity mentality. So what did I start pulling out of my box? Same stuff until I learned how to change it. So that's really, really important. You've got to change the mindset, the culture in your company, in the mindset of each individual. It's critically important. Number two, once you get the mindset, everybody's thinking positively, everybody's taking responsibility. It takes a little time. What I've been doing though for 20 years. You got to organize your financial reports. I cannot even tell you in 20 years how many times I walk into companies that have been around for 25 years, 20 years, and their financial reports look like a big jumbled mess. I don't even know how you can run a business. Everything is one, if there's any reports at all, it's all in one big box, one big bucket of money. And as a result, you have no idea where you're winning and where you're losing. You have to departmentalize your financial statement so that each department is its own little business. You might have service, you might have maintenance, you might have install, you might have plumbing, you might have commercial. You got to look at every source of income in your business, and you have to organize it in your financial statements like its own little company, which means every department has its own revenue goals, has its own cost of goods, and it has to share it in the overhead, right? It has to care, you have to allocate the overhead over all the departments. Why is that important? Well, first of all, this is what a departmentalized financial looks like, right? You can see, this is actually one from my company. It's an older one, but you can see all of our departments across there, and every department has its own income, its own revenue. You can see that first one right there, for example, in this particular month. I don't know when it was. I think it was July of 2 years ago or something. But this department did $1,037,000, right? You go to the bottom there, you see the cost of goods, and you see your total gross profit, which was $465,000. Now, that sounds good, but listen, that department also has to carry, at this particular time, it had to carry $241,000 of overhead. It's a process. It's a formula to allocate overhead to different departments. So that department made $222,000, right? I know exactly how much profit I made in that department. You can see if you look across there, some of the departments, this one right here, electrical install, lost $34,000. The funny thing is, it had gross profit. Actually, it didn't have any gross profit that month. So you start seeing how every department, let me tell you why this is important. Suppose your service manager comes to you one day and had a great month in service, $100,000 in revenue at a 50% gross profit. And your service manager comes to you and says, boss, check it out. We had $50,000 in gross profit dollars in my department this month. We did 100 grand, 50% gross profit, 50,000 gross profit dollars. I need a new truck and I need a raise. And you say, well, wow, that's really impressive. Let's go take a look at the departmentalized financial statement, the income statement. And you go over there and lo and behold, you show it to them. Well, yeah, you had 50,000 gross profit dollars, but look, your department is supposed to carry $45,000 a month of the overhead. All you really did was make $5,000. So we're going to have to wait on that new truck and that raise until we get the net profit, not just the gross profit, the net profit in your department where it needs to be. Now you have the tools, the mechanism to look at your business, every department, every single month, and see exactly where you're winning and exactly where you're losing. The other big benefit of this is, listen, you talk to 50 contractors and there'll be 50 different ways of calculating gross profit. The problem is there's only one correct way. And if you don't have it correct, you will get false information and make bad decisions. I had a client one time, for example, came to me and he says, I'm firing everybody. I'm thinning the herd. And I said, what's going on? He says, well, we had a great month last month. We had a 50% gross profit, and I got so much overhead, I still lost money. And I said, I knew his business. I'm like, geez, I don't think you're that overwhelmed with overhead. I don't think you're overstaffed or anything. Let's take a closer look at your income statement. So he shows me his income statement, and what I discovered is that a ton of items that should be in the cost of goods up top, right, the direct expenses of doing those jobs, he had a lot of that stuff down in his overhead. Right. In particular, he had all the burden rate for his direct labor, sales commissions, install labor. He had the burden rate for all that down in overhead. He also had down in overhead the financing cost of all the jobs that they sold that month, right? Which are not supposed to go in overhead. They're supposed to go as direct cost, right? A direct cost of goods, is any expense you incur as a result of selling the job. Well, if I don't sell the job, I don't have those financing costs. If I don't sell the job, I don't have the burden rate on the labor because there's nothing to install. So we redid his, got the chart of accounts straightened out, And lo and behold, his gross profit was under 40%. It was like 38%, right? So he didn't have an overhead problem. He just wasn't charging enough for his systems. He was fixing to start firing people and making a fatal decision that wasn't even the right decision because he didn't know what the hell he was looking at. When he found out what he was looking at, we raised prices 15%. Lo and behold, now he started making profits. If you don't have accurate departmentalized financials with allocated overhead, you will inevitably make stupid decisions in your business. And if you make a good decision, it's because you got lucky, because you don't freaking know. You don't have a clue. This process takes a few hours. And I've seen companies in business for 30 years that don't have it done. And we sit down and get it done in a half a day with their accountant. Lo and behold, they get, oh, look at this. Look what I can see. Oh my goodness. I'm doing well here, but I'm not doing well here. You can't run a business without this. You might as well just have Ray Charles come in, because that's how blind you'd be if you're not doing this stuff. You got to do this stuff. Step 3, obviously, you got to grow sales revenue and profit, EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, and amortization, right? We got to get profitable. Now, again, if you want to sell to private equity, you got to do this stuff anyway. If you don't want to, work yourself to death and be broke, you got to do it anyway. You got to do this either way. Run your business like you're going to sell it. And if you do that, you will make tons of money. And if you choose not to sell it, power to you, right? That's great. A lot of people do that. So we now have the right culture in our company. We have the right attitudes of personal responsibility. We have our financials organized. Now we can go to work. Let's go to work and grow sales revenue and EBITDA. How do we do that? Kind of a 3-step process. Number 1, you have to set quality residential sales leads and service calls. All too many companies are out there. A call comes in, they book it, and it's on the schedule for 2:00 tomorrow. That is not setting and qualifying a quality lead. That is just taking a phone number and address and putting in your schedule. Setting a lead is an art form, and there's a process to set a lead properly. In fact, we have scripts. Go onto YouTube, search me, and lead coordination. You'll see all this stuff. It's not a big secret. I give it away because I know people won't actually do it. I get paid to implement, right? People ask me, how do you give all your shit away? Because nobody will use it. I've been doing 20 years. And how many people I've taught to do this stuff? Tens of thousands. You know how many people implement it? Precious few. So that's what they pay me to come in and do, because I come in and drive the whole program and get it done. And then we actually see some results. But we have a very simple script of how to properly set a lead. All leads are not created equal. We got to teach people how to set the leads properly, build the relationship with the homeowner, establish yourself as the authority, qualify for time. We teach folks how to get both homeowners there. It's a very simple process. Take a screenshot of this. That's the whole freaking thing. That's the whole magic behind $42 million in the last 5 years, not to mention 6 other companies and hundreds of companies that are clients of mine. There's no big secret to it, right? Maybe you'll be one of the rare few that actually do it and save yourself some money. If you don't want to do it, I will come do it for you. And it's not all that expensive, really, not when you consider what you get. We'll talk about that later. We got to quit. These are marketed leads we're talking about. Now let's talk about your tech turn leads. For those of you out there who have ever sold, there's nothing worse than walking into a so-called tech turn lead, that big low-hanging fruit, the best leads of all leads, and you walk in the house and the homeowner says, well, I'm not even sure why you're here. The guy just said I should get a price. That is a shitty lead. That is not a quality, qualified sales lead. So you have to teach your technicians there's more to this process than just saying, you want to buy a new system? I'll have somebody come out. There's a specific conversation that we have to have, and the right conversation to set more leads. I'm going to give you a little pro tip here. I'm not going to charge you a dime for it. When you get to the end of a service call, if it's appropriate, let's say that's going to be $1,000 in repairs, 25-year-old system. Obviously, the homeowner's better off replacing it at this stage. Instead of saying, hey, you should look at a new system, right? That's going to be pushing. You need to pull. When we find that situation, we train our technicians to say, Mr. Homeowner, I'm pretty sure the last thing in the world you're thinking about today is replacing this old system, aren't you? Absolutely. We weren't thinking about replacing it. No, I'm the same way. Why would you replace it when you can keep repairing it? But let me ask you a question. This is the key. Even though you're not going to replace it now, do you think since it's 25 years old, you might replace it in the next 5 years? 100 times out of 100, they'll say yes. Oh, yeah, in 5 years, because they feel no pressure. They don't feel cornered. They don't feel trapped. Oh, yeah, next 5 years. And then we just say, well, listen, since you're going to change it out in 5 years, let's quickly go over the cost to keep that over the next 5 years. Number one, you got today's repair. It's $1,000. We got good old utility bills, how much you're currently spending. Let's say it's $250 a month, $3,000 a year. We can save you $400, $500, $600 a year in utilities. Let's say $500 a year. That's $2,500 over 5 years. Today's repair is $1,000. That's $3,500. What about good old inflation, right? The new system's going to be probably more in 5 years, right? Maybe $1,000, maybe $2,000, who knows? Next thing you know, you got $3,500, $4,500 in this old system that you've already decided to replace. But guess what? After you spend that $4,500, you know what you got? You still got the old system. You spent the money and you still got the old system. So given the fact you're going to replace it in 5 years, does it make sense to at least take a quick look at what it would take to put that $4,500 in a new system? Or should I just get started with today's repair? You see, that's how you set a quality lead. You set that hook and you get them to lean into you. You're the takeaway. You're not going to do it now, but you might do it in 5 years, right? You got to set quality tech turn leads, right? And we take them through a 3-step process. Again, we have scripts. You can find all this stuff. It's all over the internet. Again, it's just not a big secret. We give them the exact conversation. It's a 1.5-page conversation. It's not rocket science. It's not, freaking nuclear atom splitting or whatever the hell it is. It's consistency. Third component of this particular section is you got to build and use a residential HVAC system. You got to have a sales system. If you think that you're going to get top performance by going in there and winging it, you are fooling yourselves. How do I know? Well, I'm an expert on it, number one. Number two, I've written a book on it, right? Consistent sales results comes from a consistent sales process. Random sales results come from a random sales process, right? If you have a consistent process you follow, you will deliver consistent results. And I'll tell you something better. When you go from 0 to $42 million in 5 years, it means I had some pretty good salespeople, right? You damn straight I did. I had a bunch of them, half a dozen of them. But in this day and age, it's pretty hard to find good people in our industry, isn't it? Yes, it is. Very hard. But guess what? They're not from our industry. I hire guys working at restaurants, selling cars. We just interviewed a gal today I met on an airport, right? You look for talented people that have sales experience. They were selling insurance. They were selling cars. They were selling mortgages, right? You can teach them everything they need to know. And that, for you old timers, this is going to blow your mind. You're probably going to hate me. You can teach them everything they need to know to be able to sell a system mechanically in 1 week. Load calc, combustion air, airflow. If they know those 3 things, they can sell a system with my system because they turn the page and they read the stuff and they ask the questions and it sells itself. So now I have the benefit that I can go out, I can find commissioned salespeople. If a salesperson comes in your office at your HVAC company and wants to know what the base salary is, don't hire them, right? That's the wrong person. You want people who eat what they kill, right? You want hunters. You want gatherers. You don't want people coming in looking for a free ride. So you got to build a sales system and have a reliable system to sell on. Doesn't have to be mine, although mine's probably the best. But it doesn't have to be mine. There's some really smart people out there, way smarter than me, but it doesn't matter. As long as you use a consistent system, you're going to have success. Now, the ones I build, based on this book right here, Consistency Selling, I have what I call the sales hallway. This is the basic model. What it means is you got to walk your homeowner down that hallway to the very end and hopefully earn their trust, earn their business. However, along the way, they're going to have lots of questions. Questions about your company, questions about your equipment. Most importantly, at least in their mind, questions about the price. And then when they get the price, they want to scoot out of one of those doors on the side, right? One of those little escape routes, like Hansel and Gretel, little trail of breadcrumbs they leave so they can escape. And what do they say to escape? Well, you hear it every day. You're too expensive. I need a cheaper price. I need 3 bids. I need to think about it. And off they go. Psh, they're gone. Next thing you know, you're waiting for a call next Tuesday that never comes. The key to the consistency selling process is based on a very simple concept. Public declarations dictate future actions. If I can get someone to say something, not if I say it, if they say it, then they become imminently more likely to take actions consistent with that at the end. We don't have time to get into the whole selling process, but that's what it comes down to is in the first 30 minutes of my sales call, I'm going to have my homeowner admit to me that price is not the most important factor. 3 bids won't protect them, and they can let me know today if I'm a good fit. I'm going to have them tell me that, right? It's just through experience, 20 years of doing this. I've learned the stories. I've learned the questions. Again, you can pick up that book on audio and learn the whole system. You don't even have to get it from me. You can get it anywhere. But you have to have a system, a strategy to walk in. How many people walk in these damn houses? They walk in, look around, drop off a bid, and then they don't understand why the homeowner is beating them up on price. You haven't given them anything else to make a decision on, right? Listen, you could be the best company in the world, and this guy can come up and Dewey's, heat him and cheat him. And guess what? They both got nice trucks. They both got uniforms. They look the same. The homeowner doesn't know the difference, right? They can't tell. And if you get to the end of your presentation and your homeowner's comparing you to the cheap guy that you know is going to screw them, you have no one to blame but yourself. It's our job to educate them. It's our job to educate them. And if you don't educate them, you can't blame somebody else and be upset. Listen, when you get to the end of a sales call, I guarantee you, your homeowner is thinking, how can I get this guy down? How can I get them to drop the price? I wonder how much they're going to give me. If you follow my system, based on the questions, the process that I teach, when you get down to the end, the last thing they're going to say to themselves before you show them your prices, they're going to be saying, man, I hope I can afford this guy. I hope I can afford this company, right? And that's a much different dynamic when your homeowner's thinking, man, I hope I can afford them. They're going to know you're expensive. If you get to the end and your homeowner is surprised that you're way more expensive, you simply haven't done your job. They should say, well, I figured you're going to be more, because that's the service and the quality and the value I built along the way. That they're like, oh, I figured you'd be more expensive. But if they're surprised how much more expensive I haven't done my job. I walked in, looked around, gave them a price, high price, and now I could just blame my boss because the prices are too damn high. By the way, for those of you who have to deal with salespeople, all of us do, and I love salespeople. I'm one myself. The reality is that they will go into a house and they will see a competitor's bid for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 less than yours. And they'll come back to their office. They come back to you, the manager, the owner, and they say, we're $7,000 higher. And I'll say, well, how'd you learn that? I saw the guy's bid. Oh, you saw his bid for $7,000 less? Yeah. Well, did you see the letter from the IRS? He's 2 years behind on his taxes. He's a year behind on his mortgage. Did he show the letter where his kids got kicked out of private school because he couldn't afford it? Oh, they don't show that. All they have is these cheap ass prices that our sales guys see, and they start thinking that's the standard. That some moron that doesn't know how to run a friggin' business has somehow gained the wisdom and the genius to properly set pricing. This idiot. And they're going to come to me and say, hey, this guy is setting the standard out there. He's $7,000. I don't care how much cheaper he is. He's also in debt up to his eyeballs. He's also behind on taxes, mortgage, everything else. Don't bring that shit to me. Go home, bring his personal financial statements to me, his tax records, his credit rating. Bring all that to me too. So don't let people come in whining about other people's prices. What sets the prices is the cost of goods sold. It's a formula. There's one right way to do it. It's called gross profit dollars per day. Has nothing to do with your competition. It actually has nothing to do with gross margin percentage. It's all about gross profit dollars. That's what determines your pricing. It's a formula. We're not guessing. We're not making prices up at thin air. The reason that guy's $7,000 cheaper, because he's a freaking moron. He's an idiot. He doesn't know what his cost of goods are. He has no idea what he's doing. He sits around at the end of the month complaining and blaming everybody else. That's not how we roll. Also, we have, for our clients and for my companies, we actually develop the entire sales process. Page by page, we teach you how to use it. It's scripted. The questions are scripted out. Very simple process. Boom, boom, boom. We go through it. And this was the one from the company I just sold, Peak Home Performance. We got all the inside pages right there. This is really, really important. Listen, when you come in with an organized process, you send a very powerful message to your homeowners that these people are organized. They are professional. If I come in with a notepad scribbling on paper, what does that say about my level of organization? Not very much. And if my organization's bad on the sales process, what do you think it's like on the install process? Probably just as bad. When I come in and I look like a professional, I look the part, I play the part, I have all the tools. Clearly, I'm a professional. What does that say about the quality of our install? Probably our installation process is pretty organized as well. So you send a very powerful message to your homeowner about what it's going to be like after the sale by being professional on the front end. Now, here's another thing you got to keep in mind. You have your sales book. We build it for you. I do not use complicated technology for presenting prices. And I like to use simple 8.5 by 14 inch menu-based price cards. It's 8.5 by 14 laminated, right? Because I don't want to confuse my homeowner. You know why? The confused mind says no. So when I get to the end, and by the way, the CRM is critical. I couldn't run my company without ours. And I love Breezy. Did you know Breezy was built specifically for HVAC only? And I know there's some other big names out there that go by the initials ST, and I know they're worth $8 billion, but they're built for every conceivable contracting business out there. And that's why it doesn't fit. Breezy is customized to our industry, to HVAC, so something to think about. But when I get to the end and I do my trial close, I bring out and I got 7 systems. And there's a magic reason I use 7. It has a lot to do with something called compromise choices and the concession principle. I need them to say no to the first system, maybe the first 2, because there's a ton of research we don't have time to get into today. Come to one of my sales trainings, I'll teach you. But they become 3 times more likely to say yes to me if they say no to something first, right? It's powerful, right? In other words, if I ask you for $5, there's a certain percentage, we don't know what that would be exactly, that you would give me the $5. If I ask you for $20 first and you say no, and then I ask you for $5, you're going to be 3 times more likely to give me the $5, right? It's called the concession principle. This is why I need 7 systems. I need them to say no. And I've seen sales guys, nobody buys these expensive ones, right? And so they deprive themselves of the concession principle because now they're only getting serious about the ones in the middle. They're going to keep going. Now they're going to say no to one of those. So again, we have the entire process mapped out. I know I'm getting short on time. This is really important though, right? The CRM is critical. We depend on it for my sales training business, for HVAC, obviously. You got to be organized around technology for keeping track. You want something that grows massive club base. By the way, Breezy, I just happen to know, very familiar with Sean and their whole program. It's designed to help you sell maintenance agreements, right? It's going to help you run your sales process. You can embed my sales process in there. I like I'm old school. I'm 60 some odd years old now. Some of you like the fancy technology stuff. And an AI equipment scanner, really important, right? Because guys waste a lot of time on the phone trying to figure out what a piece of equipment is. What if you could just scan it, and now you know exactly what you got in your hands, right? So I highly encourage you, not just because they sponsor this. I recommend these guys all the time. It's a great product. It's built for us. It's really important you're organized around that. Step 5, this is a biggie, deliver consistent training. If you look at any successful organization, the best companies in the country, they are training every day. Somebody in that building every single day is getting trained. Maybe it's the accounting team, maybe it's the sales team, maybe it's the service techs, maybe it's installers, maybe it's the call center, maybe somebody's getting trained every single day. And owners and managers sometimes complain, well, I told you guys that last month. Listen, the day's never coming that you can tell people to do stuff one time and it happens perfectly every day thereafter. You might as well believe in Santa Claus and a friggin' tooth fairy and a big old bunny that brings eggs at Easter. Because the nature of our business as leaders, as managers and owners, is to train and develop people. It's never going to end. So you gotta take the training stuff seriously. And listen, there's so much information out there for free. Go on YouTube and you will find videos on every conceivable topic. There's people like me that have put all this content out there. There's tons of guys like me. I mean, none that went to prison for 13 years, probably. Somebody told me, they asked me about my competition. I said, I don't have any competition unless they went to prison for 14 years. Because everything I learned is what I learned by overcoming the adversity. That's what taught me on the mean streets how to get things done. But you got to train on a regular basis, right? So what do? I do in my company every single morning, 3 to 5 minutes of what I call a micro training. Every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And what do? I shoot it and I send it to the cell phone of everybody in my company. It's just a daily message of motivation. It might be something on service or sales, ask for the order, build a relationship. Daily reminders, 3 to 5 minutes. And I am going to show you a little sample here to give you an idea how it looks. It's not complicated. The consistency is the big deal. No, now it stopped. There we go. Hey everybody, Weldon Long here. Here's something to think about. I want to talk about today the single most important thing you can do in sales to be effective. The single most important thing. Now listen, I've been writing books in sales and training in sales for over 20 years, and there's a lot of things that you got to do to get really, really good, to be a top performer. But the reality is there is one simple thing that you can do, no matter how inexperienced you are, no matter how new you are, no matter how much you don't maybe understand heating and air conditioning. A lot of my sales guys came from out of the industry. And even though they don't know a lot about the industry, doing this one little thing can make a huge difference in terms of their sales performance. And that little thing is ask for the damn order. There's nothing that you can do in sales to make you successful more quickly than asking for the sale. Because the reality is, studies have shown that well over 90% of all sales calls in our industry end without the service technician or the comfort advisor asking for the order formally. Oh, they may hint around about it like, hey, Mr. Homeowner, if you want to do one of these, we could do it next week. And the homeowner says, okay, well, let me call you back next Tuesday. And you say, here's my card. I'll talk to you next week, which of course you're never going to, right? You got to get in the habit of asking directly for the business. Why? Because the answer is always no until you ask. So no matter what happens on the call, no matter how poorly you think it went, no matter what the situation is, when you get to the end, you have to make a specific request. So Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, that seems like a good system. With your permission, can I start the paperwork? Or with your permission, can I get you an install date? Or will you trust me with this installation? You have to make a specific request. I mean, listen, you got to understand that you invest a lot of time in a service call and a sales call, and until you sell something, you're an unpaid consultant. You're a brilliant conversationalist. We get paid for what happens in the last 4 or 5 minutes of a call, and that is when the homeowner decides to buy from us. But you have to ask, because they're not going to be jumping through hoops to give you a bunch of money, right? Especially if it's no heat or no cool in that kind of situation. Maybe there's some urgency, but in most of the cases, people have heating and air, and they're making a decision to buy maybe a newer, better quality, higher efficiency system. But you have to ask, because if you just leave it up to, fate, the twisted winds of fate, they're probably going to say, well, let me think about it and give me a card. I'll call you back later. So get in the habit of asking. And by the way, you might have to ask a couple of times. Studies have shown that people typically have to be asked 3 times or more before they say yes. So how do you ask a couple of times without being pushy? Well, we just talked about the first way, right? So you look at some options and you say, Mr. Homeowner, that seems like a great option for you. With your permission, can I start the paperwork? That's the first ask, right? They might say, no, we got to think about it. Then just change the subject, right? If they're not going in the direction you want them to go, point them in a different direction. Say, by the way, I noticed that motorcycle out in your garage. How long you been riding motorcycles, right? Just get them talking about something else. And then at any point in the conversation, simply say, by the way, Mr. Homeowner, do you feel like my company would do a great job on the installation? They're going to say, oh, sure. Well, great. Let's get the paperwork started, right? You just get them to agree with anything and you say, oh, well, great. Let's go ahead and do the paperwork. Right, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, do you think my company would stand behind any warranties or guarantees that we have if there's a problem after the install? Oh, I'm sure you would. Well, great. Let's get you an install date. You got to get in the habit of asking. Ask for the damn order. By the way, the same thing goes for CSRs. When you're asking for the order as a CSR, you're asking the homeowner to schedule a service call or a sales call. You have to specifically ask. You have to say, hey, let's go ahead and get you set for Thursday at 2 o'clock. How does that sound, right? So you got to ask for the order. Don't let the entire value of the relationship that you built with your homeowner go to waste when you just kind of fizzle out at the end. You got to be strong. You got to have a spine. You got to stand tall, and you got to ask for the damn order. I guarantee you do that, and you'll see your numbers improve, and it will happen very, very quickly. Amen to that. It'll happen very quickly. So we do that every day. By the way, if you'd like to get a free access to that, I send out to all my clients. We provide it as a service to the industry. Shoot an email to just actually info@weldonlong.com, info@weldonlong.com. And we can put you on the distribution for that. It'll go right to your salespeople every morning, and service techs. And then we do weekly meetings, and then we do monthly live role play and coaching with our team. So that's kind of the thing. Now, by the way, but I'm fixing to give away this free ticket, so don't run off. By the way, that ticket's like I think the price is on this, like $3,700. If you want to sell, but if you want to keep your business for a long time too, you got to do these things. Everything I've just talked about, you also have to build your management team, right? If you want to sell your company, unless you want to stay and run it, you got to have a management team in place. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck there for a couple of years instead of gone fishing, which is why you sold your business in the first place. Plus, if you get a management team and you don't sell, you can go fishing anyway, right? I told you, 4 hours a week at that company, right? Implement a reliable sales process. We've talked a lot about that. Show the money. I don't even know what I meant by that. Oh, that means your income statement. You got to show it. You got to be able to see your money exactly where it's going. Focus on paying down debt. when you sell your company, if you sell your company, private equity expects a debt-free company. That means you got to pay off all your trucks, all your debt out of your proceeds. So if you're going to sell in a couple of years, start paying it down now. It'll be much less painful if you do it now as you go along. When we sold this company, we had about $2 million in debt we had to pay off. If you start doing it sooner, then, it's going to be less painful. And then choose your partners wisely. This is really important. There are honest private equity people out there, and there are dishonest private equity people out there, just like in everything else in life. There's good people and bad people. And the difference here is that you can get your clock cleaned for millions of dollars. There's a lot of things that they can do, a little shell game they can do and cost yourself millions of dollars. If you're thinking about selling, you definitely should give me a call and let me show you the ropes a little bit, right? I can help you with that. So I got 3 questions for you. Question number 1, and then I'm going to give away a free ticket. I'm ready. I want to have a private conversation with Weldon about possibly selling my company. And I think, there it is. I would like to have a conversation with Weldon about possibly selling my company. If that's you, just give me a big yes. If it's a no, just give us a big no. If you're interested in selling, we can help you do that. We'll show you the ropes. Make sure that you don't get sold down the primrose path and get your clock cleaned for a few $1 million. Very, very important. Looks like most of you want to keep your company for right now. That's awesome. That's good. I think that probably should be enough time there, CJ. So most of you are not ready to sell yet. Okay. Question number 2. I'm not ready, but I would like to learn how to get my company ready. And this is where I think most of us are. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I don't know. But if you get ready, if you build it like you're going to sell it, then you have the option of not selling it, but you've got everything built that you can go enjoy your life and not have to be there fighting fires all day long, right? Absolutely crazy. So if you would like to learn a little more about doing that, let us know. And the last is, I'm not sure. I just want to grow my company profitable. I don't really want to sell. I just want to grow profitably. So that's kind of like the second question too, I guess. But if you're not sure, you want to learn how to grow your company, let us know, and we can help you on that as well. Oh, that's quite a few of you guys. Wow. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay. Now, for the big moment we've all been waiting for. We are going to give away some free stuff. So this ticket is, if you're not a member, it's $3,299 and another $899, $900. So it's like $4,100 for the VI experience to come look at my cars and smoke cigars with me and drink whiskey. So it's $4,000. We're fixing to give one away for free. So if you filled out the form, the little snapshot thing, and we'll give you a couple more minutes in case you do it and you're thinking, holy crap, I should do this. We'll give you a couple of minutes, and then CJ and Krista are going to randomly draw from that list. I think it's a little mechanical thing. This is crazy. I'm seeing 2 of myself. One was bad enough. Well, I'm not sure what I'm doing. There we go. So if you haven't filled out the form yet, I'm going to give you just another 30 seconds. And then Krista, and is Krista going to come on, CJ? Are you going to call her? How's that going to work?
No, I'm going to announce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So CJ is going to announce. And again, this is a $4,100 deal. And you come out for 2 days. I'm going to be speaking there. We're going to have Gary Alex will be at the VIP event because he is the cigar aficionado. We're actually having a professional aficionado cigar guy there and several whiskeys. And we're going to set it up and have it catered at my shop and be surrounded by beautiful cars. So, but the 2 days, we're also having Steve Schallenberger come out, who is a leadership expert. He's going to speak. We're going to have somebody from Breezy. We're going to have Sean come down, I think.
Yep.
Sean's going to come down. Nice young man, sharp young man. And from Breezy, he'll be down there talking about that.
Sean wants to know how much to drive your Ferrari, Wally.
Well, the kind of cold, bad weather right now. I feel bad saying this. It kind of depends on which one. We've got several to choose from. So, but probably not in March. Probably that's our snowiest month here. So probably not going to be outdoor. It'll be April before these cars get to see the light of day. I want to mention also, I'm going to have a very good friend of mine, Jacob Washkarak, from one of the best private equity firms in the country. And he's going to talk a little bit about what they're looking for. So it's going to be 2 days of jam-packed information. I'm going to be teaching some departmentalization on the financial, all the stuff we talked about today. I'm going to be teaching it over 2 days. The sales process, the mindset process, leadership, all of that stuff, the financial accounting. We're gonna do all that stuff over the course of 2 days, and then we're gonna go to my shop one night and smoke cigars and drink whiskey. Don't drink too much because we'll get started again early the next morning. And with that, I think we've given everybody. I've stalled long enough, I believe, CJ.
All right.
That we can tug on a ticket.
Drum roll, please. Mr. Bill Leary from
Bill
Edison,
Leary,
New Jersey. You're going to be
oh,
joining
wow.
us.
You got a long way to come. You got to buy your own flight. I can give you a ticket. I can't pay your airfare. That's going to be a long flight. Actually, I'm going to be in New Jersey in a couple of weeks. I'm going to speak. I think I'm going to speak in Delaware, aren't I?
Nope. New
Jersey. New Jersey?
Yep.
Okay. I thought I was flying to Philly and going to Delaware. Flying to Philly, going to New Jersey, and speaking at an Air Force base, some type of graduation or something at a big joint Air Force base down there. I'm not sure what that's all about, but I'll find out when I get there and think of something to say. Well, thank you, CJ, and congratulations to our winner. Any final questions? Any final questions coming in? How much to drive the Ferrari? Oh, Sean. I'm going to have them roped off around you, Sean. I don't want you spilling whiskey on them. Thank you, Chad. Good to see you, buddy. Long time no see.
I got a question for you, Wally.
Okay. Yep. All right.
What's the first department or process you think I should focus on to see the biggest impact?
Of those topics we talked about today, I think that you need to start simultaneously on the culture and the departmentalizing your financials, right? Because you can do both at the same time. You can start teaching them the mindset process, the personal responsibility, but I'm going to tell you something. It's super, super important to departmentalize those financials because every decision you make should be driven by information on that financial, that income statement. And so you got to make sure it's accurate, and not just accurate by department, but the chart of accounts has to be accurate. You can't have stuff down in overhead that should be in cost of goods because you'll end up making a lot of wrong decisions because you got bad information. Garbage in, garbage out type of thing.
Yep. Another one, kind of similar to the last one. What are some common areas that you think I might be leaving some money on the table?
Well, that's a different question in terms of that. Listen, my guess is if I go talk to 10 companies, look at their financials, out of 10, 7 or 8 of them are underpriced, both on their labor rate, their street rate, and also their systems, because they're allowing the market, the competition, to drive them to make pricing decisions. Your pricing decisions have to be made based on your financial situation. No two companies have identical overhead expenses. So what your prices have to be driven by your situation. Now, having said that, if you're going to raise your prices 10 or 15%, and you should be at least a minimum of $450 an hour in your flat rate. And if you're underpriced on your systems, you can't just raise your prices without doing all the other stuff because nobody can sell, right? We have to train our salespeople to learn how to sell at these, I'm not even say higher prices, just the proper pricing. And we got to teach our service technicians how to deal with the pricing as well. So it all kind of goes together. You got to raise your prices in most cases. Some of you might be priced properly, but in most cases we see massively underpriced. And to raise prices, you got to better prepare your people. They got to be better trained or they're going to get their teeth kicked in.
All right. Thanks, Wally. We're a little bit over on time. So I want to just be sure that you have the floor if you want to leave anybody with some closing remarks.
Well, I would just say, I'll leave you my favorite quote, CJ, on that note. And we'll give a shout out to Sean. I see he's on there as well. Sean Ritchie. I will listen. James Allen, one of my favorite writers, about 150 years ago, he wrote 6 words that to me are life transforming. And the 6 words are: dispersion is weakness, concentration is power. I will tell you, I got 103 IQ. There's nothing brilliant about this brain. My success is a reflection and a result of focus and execution, right? Dispersion is weakness, concentration is power. Get focused on what you're trying to accomplish in your business and in your life. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. Get focused. Focus is the key to all success. Nobody accidentally builds a $42 million company. You don't accidentally do the things you're most proud of. Think about something you've done major. Built a car, built a family, built a house, whatever it was. It was a reflection of focus. It didn't happen accidentally. Focus.
I love that, Wally. Thanks so much.
Thanks, CJ. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, buddy.
Krista. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate it. And congratulations again on our big ticket winner.
Woo! Go Bill.
See you guys soon.
All right, guys, I want to leave you with a closing statement, introduce you to next month's guest. We're welcoming Danielle Putnam from the new Flat Rate. She will be talking about how to boost profits and loyalty with the new Flat Rate pricing. So if you wouldn't mind, scan the QR code and join us next month. Thanks all.
By the way, CJ, just so you know, we use this. It's a fantastic product. It is a fantastic product.
Incredible.
Yep.
Well,
You'll triple your average repair ticket with this little system. It's powerful. Anyway, I gotta go. Just thought I'd throw that in.
cheers, guys. We'll see you next time.
See you, CJ.